you've downloaded, and the second one is the browser version. Now, teachers always make sure that you will prioritize using our application. Why? Because there are actually some features in our application that is not available on your browser version. All right. Now, just in case that the application is not working, or let's say it's loading very slow, then that's the time you can transfer to your browser version, right? Okay, now let's log in. All right, so let's type our password here. All right. So teachers, if you have noticed, whenever you log in to your application or even on your browser, you always have this notification, right? Yes. Now, teachers, you don't really have to worry about this notification because this is only just, a reminder that you haven't finished your personal data page, okay? Now, if you would click on confirm, then you will be redirected to the personal data page. Then you can continue filling it out, okay? However, if you are done with your personal data and you still see this notification, then you can just simply close it. No worries, that notification wouldn't affect anything in your tutor client. Now, the first page of our tutor client, or this is also our first tab here, this is what we call our dashboard. Now, teachers, here in our dashboard, you have your bulletin board. We also have the teaching dynamics, and of course, we have the teaching points. Now, if you wonder why you don't see the teaching points on your dashboard, no worries, because that part will appear once you start your classes. Now let's discuss what is teaching points and how do we get these points. So first is for each class that you will be able to complete, you will earn points, okay? So it means to say the more classes you finish or open or complete, then the more points you will earn, especially teachers if you finish classes during the weekends, okay? Because you can get higher points once the class is done on the weekend. Now, next is we also have here the good rating. Now, of course, you will also earn points once you have received a good rating. But how do we get this good rating? So every after class, your student will have the option to leave you ratings, all right? Now, our ratings here are in the form of stars. The highest that you can get is going to be 5 stars. However, teachers, if your student, let's say, didn't give you any ratings, or let's say they just forgot to give you ratings, that's okay because automatically, teachers, you will still receive 4 stars because 4 stars here is our default star. However, if your student gave you 3 stars or below, then that's automatically deemed as complaint, okay? But no worries, because even though it's going to be tagged as complaint, it's not going to be taken against you immediately, okay? So your TM will still check on why did you get that kind of rating. The only time that it will be taken against you or it will be counted on you is when that complaint became valid. Okay, so once your TM sees that there is really something wrong with the class, that's why you receive that kind of rating, then that complaint is going to be tagged as valid and you will receive a penalty for that. Okay. However, teachers, if your TM saw that you actually didn't do anything in class, like the class went well, then that complaint is going to be tagged as invalid. And once it is already invalid, then it's not going to be taken against you and there will be no penalties. Clear? All right. So again, teachers, for each 5 stars and 4 star ratings, you will earn points. So that is why don't forget that every after class, you can also remind your students to leave your ratings. Okay. However, when you remind them, don't directly ask for 5 stars. Okay. You can just simply ask them to leave you some ratings or to leave you some stars. Clear? Okay, perfect. Now, also, teachers, your teaching points going to be deducted if ever you have absences, bad rating, cancellations. Now, for others here, your TM can also give you teaching points, depending on whatever reasons they have. Right? Now, what is the purpose of this teaching points? Now, teachers, you're still starting, so your current level is D1. All right. So it means to say the more points you earn, the higher your level is going to be. So from D1, you're going to go up to D2, D3, and then D4. Okay. Now, once you've reached the level C, then you will receive a certificate. You will also be under salary evaluation. And then, of course, you will be able to unlock more benefits. Right now, teachers, it's kind of easy, or it's very easy to reach level C as long as you don't have a lot of absences or cancellations or even complaints. Okay. All right, now let's move on to our teaching dynamics. Now, for this one, teachers, this is just like your tutor client calculator, where it automatically counts if how many completed classes you've had, how many absences, unbooked, canceled, 5-star ratings, and of course, our 1 to 2 star ratings. Now, for this part, teachers, this updates every day and it refreshes every end of the month. Okay. All right. Now, of course, we also have our bulletin board. Now, teachers always remember that whatever message you see on our bulletin board, you have to make sure that you will be able to read them and understand, okay? Because once the message is already posted on our bulletin board, it means to say this message is intended for all Acadsoc teachers, and it's going to be either a big announcement or big changes, okay? All right, good. Now, this is not the only message that we will actually receive, okay? If you click this bell icon here, this is where you will see tons of messages, okay? Now, don't worry because not all of them here are mandatory to read, okay? Now, the only messages here that you're actually required to read would be messages coming from your TMs, okay? Now, you would know if the message is from your TM because they usually put like TM notice, TM share, TM announcements, okay? And of course, once you see a message that starts with important notice, then you are also required to read that message. Okay. Now, for the rest of the messages here, they're already voluntary. Okay. For example, the message that we received today, improve your teaching skills to handle adult beginners. Now, if you want to do this one, if you're free, you have time, then you can just click the link and then you will be redirected to the course. However, if you have classes or you're fully booked, then you can just do this one some other time. Okay. Now, it's not really required for you to do these courses. However, it is advisable because it will also help you gain more students. Okay. All right. Now, aside from these messages here, we also have the warning tab. So just in case that in the future you will receive a warning letter, then this is where you will see it. Okay. Now, remember, teachers, 3 warning letters is already ground for termination, right? Now, why do or what are the reasons for us to receive a warning letter? First is, of course, if you have received multiple complaints, okay? Now, if in a month you will receive like 3 or more complaints, then that's going to be followed by a warning letter. The second reason is multiple absences and cancellations. However, for this part, teachers, this will depend on your TM if how many absences, cancellations will they allow before they give you the warning letter. And when we say absences, teachers, or cancellations, this includes your being late, late for clocking in, late for class, and leaving the classroom early. All right. Now, aside from this bell icon here, we also have this Wi-Fi icon or This is what we call our network test. Now, teachers, you can also use this to check your speed test. All right. However, teachers, it's good or it's better if you just use the speedtest.net or fast.com because it's faster and it's more accessible, right? And then we have another icon here. This is what we call the teacher's task. Now, teachers, we rarely use this icon because the only time that you will use this icon is if ever that you have received a task from either Acadsoc or from your TM. All right. So no worries because once that they will give a task, all of those tasks are voluntary. Okay. They are not mandatory and it's still going to be up to you if you want to do the task or not. Okay. And then we also have this last icon here, which is our temporary classroom. All right. So don't worry, teachers, because we are going to use this icon later when we discuss our teaching platform. But this is also what you can use if you want to check your equipment, let's say your sound, your camera, or your microphone. And also, teachers, whatever you see inside, that is also how our A classroom looks like. So we will talk about this one later. Okay. So any questions so far? None. Okay, perfect. Now, once you hover your mouse pointer to your name over here, or you click the drop down below your name or beside your name, I'm sorry. So beside your name, here you can see your clock in button. Okay. Now, teachers, this is where you put your attendance. Okay. Now, teachers, we only clock in once and we do not clock out. All right. Now, the only time that you will need to clock in is if you have open classes for the day. All right. So, if, for example, you don't have classes today, then of course you may still log in to your tutor client. However, you don't have to clock in since you don't have any classes. You can still navigate your tutor client, you can check your class table, but again, if you don't have any open classes, then you don't have to clock in. All right. Now, for the rules when it comes to clocking in, make sure, teachers, that you will clock in at least 10 to 30 minutes before your first class starts. Okay. Now, teachers, when we say first class, it doesn't matter if you have a broken schedule. Now, when we say broken schedule, there are some teachers who would open, let's say, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and 2 hours in the evening. So again, teachers, it doesn't matter if your schedule's broken. You just have to clock in 10 to 30 minutes before your first class. All right. So for example, your schedule is, let's say, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. So basically, your first class is at 6 p.m. So make sure, teachers, that you can already clock in between 5:30 to 5:50. So that's 10 to 30 minutes before 6 p.m. All right. So when we say 6 p.m., teachers, regardless if your 6 p.m. has a student or none, you still need to clock in. Clear? Okay, great. Now, when you clock in, or if ever that you clocked in at 5:51, then that is already considered late. You're going to get penalized for that. Okay. Now, teachers, there are times that we also encounter system problems or system issue because, of course, we have to understand there is no perfect system, right? Now, just in case, for example, you are trying to clock in on time, however, your tutor client application is not opening or not loading, all right? Then, of course, you transfer to the backup, which is our browser. And what if it's also not opening? All right, still the same issue. So, if ever that you have encountered or experienced that kind of problem, you cannot log in, then just make sure, teachers, that you will be able to secure a screenshot. Okay. Now, on your screenshot, teachers, make sure that there are three things visible. All right. Now, what are these three things? First is, of course, you have to show that your tutor client is not opening. All right. Now, the second thing is make sure that you are able to run a speed test and the result of your speed test is going to be visible on your screenshot. And the last one is make sure that your computer date and time is also going to be visible. All right. Now, why do we need to secure a screenshot? Now, teachers, our system here has its own way. Why? Because, for example, you were not able to clock in. Now, if ever that the system will detect that you have classes today and you were not able to clock in, regardless if it's your fault or if the tutor's client's fault, then automatically teachers, your system here, your tutor client will generate a penalty. All right. So that is why we need to provide a proof or the screenshot so that your TM can help you waive these penalties. Clear? Okay, great. Now, we also have here our teaching points. And of course, we also have our enrollment. Now, teachers, here in Acadsoc, we actually have two types of classes, okay? Now, the first type of class is what we call our VIP classes or our VIP students, okay? Now, when we say VIP teachers, these are the students who are already enrolled in Acadsoc, all right? So they are already our regular students. Now, once you start your classes, you are also going to get our VIP students, okay? So they are going to be your students, all right? Now, since you're going to be handling VIP classes or VIP students, there's a possibility that some of these students will become your regular as long as you do well in your classes. Now, the second type of class is what we call our trial classes or our trial students. Now, when we say trial classes or trial students, these are actually the students who are not yet enrolled in Acadsoc. So basically, they are just trying out the platform to see if they're going to like it. Now, if ever that a trial student attended a class and after the class that student enrolled, then whoever or the teacher who conducted their class will receive what we call the enrollment bonus, right? Now, teachers, for now, since you're still new, you're not going to get any trial classes yet, okay? And just a heads up, teachers, not all Acadsoc teachers are actually handling trial classes, okay? TMs and QAs will only choose those teachers who really have the potential to handle trial classes and they don't have any, issues whenever they're teaching. Okay, so that is why teachers, I would advise that if ever you want to handle trial classes, always do your best in your class. Always, impress your student, impress your TM. Don't have any issue. Let's say don't be absent. Don't be absent a lot of times. Do not cancel more classes. So, as long as you don't have any attendance issue, you're doing pretty well in your classes and the TM and the QA will see that you actually have the potential, then there is a chance that they will also give you trial classes. Okay. Now, the common or the obvious difference between a trial class and a VIP class is for trial classes teachers every time you conduct a class they're going to be new students. Unlike a VIP classes, there is a possibility that a certain student will book your class every day. Okay. All right. So, any questions regarding our dashboard here? None? Okay, great. Now let's move on to our second tab, which is our class table. All right, now teachers, this is how your class table looks like, and this is where you will see your classes or you will open your slots. Now, when it comes to our class table, teachers, you can look at it on a daily view, or if you want to look at it on a weekly view, then that's fine. It's already up to your comfortability. Now, teachers, When we open our schedules or when we want to open our slots, then we just have to use this class time setting. All right. Now, once you're done with all of the tasks that your HR asked you to finish, let's say the personal data, the training courses, then your HR will activate your class time setting. Now, once this is already activated, then it means to say you can already open your own slots. All right. Now, don't worry, teachers, because on your first few slots, it's either your HR or your TM will assist you on opening them. Okay. Now, how do we open slots? Once that you click on class time setting, all you need to do, teachers, is to choose the day that you want to teach. Let's say you want to choose the whole week, you may do so, and then choose the time that you want to open slots. So just click these slots and then automatically it will open. All right. So once you're done choosing all of these slots that you want to open, then on this part here, there's going to be a submit button. Just click submit, and then automatically, teachers, whatever slots you've chosen, they will be on your class table or on this page. Clear? Okay, great. Now, of course, we also have this autonomous cancellation. Now, when we say autonomous cancellation, teachers, this is what we use to cancel some of our unbooked slots. Okay. Now, when we say unbooked, these are actually slots or classes or slots that is open, but there is still no students. Okay. Now, once it is unbooked, you can choose to wait for the student or wait for a student to book it, or you can also choose to cancel it using autonomous cancellation. Now, when we cancel unbooked slots, no worries, you're not going to get any penalties. Okay. However, if you decided to cancel some of your unbooked slots, then you make sure that you do it at least 3 hours before. Okay. All right. Now, teachers, how will your class table look like once that you've already opened your classes and you already have booked classes? So let's see.
Before you raise your questions and clarifications, let me just add additional information and explanation. So once you log in your Tutor Client app, this prompt here will constantly appear. So all you've got to do is to click confirm button or just directly close it. It will gradually disappear in time, especially if you're almost done with your HR task or once you have plotted for the first time. So once you click the confirm button, once you closed it, the first thing that you will see on the left side are different icons. The first one was already discussed to you a while ago. The rest will be discussed thoroughly in the succeeding videos to come. Now, in your chat box, I've actually sent a picture. What's on it is the different labels in each of the icons that you can see on the left side and on the upper right corner. So the first icon in the left side is your dashboard, which contains teaching points, teaching dynamics, the bulletin board, and on the upper right corner, you can see four icons, which was also discussed a while. Next to it is your profile picture, and beside it, teachers, is your tutor's name and your TUID number or your tutor's unique identification number. So take note and remember that whatever is registered in your tutor's name, that is what you're going to use when you introduce yourself to your students. Okay, do not use a different name, do not use an alias, but the name in the system. Because if that student like you and they wanted to have you as their teacher again, they will find you using your tutor's name. Now, if your students are young kids to teenager, be sure that they address you as teacher inside the classroom. Not sir, not ma'am, but teacher. But if they are college students or working adults, you can introduce yourself with your name only. They can call you with your name only as well too. So name to name basis is totally fine. But for young kids to teenagers, although there is rapport build up, there is friendship created, make sure that they address you correctly inside the classroom. All right. So once you hover your mouse pointer to your tutor's name and your TUID number, this is where you will see your clock in button. So once you open slots, once you plotted classes, the first thing that you're going to do each day is to click the clock in button. So the purpose of your clock in button is to check whether you're getting ready for your open slots for that day. So with or without the student, you must click the clock in button 30 minutes to 11 minutes before your first open slot with or without a student. So let me give you an example. Let's say teachers that your first open slot in that day or in a specific day is at 5 p.m., then you must click the clock in button from 4:30 to 4:49 only. Or let's say that your first open slot is at 6:30 p.m., click the clock in button from 6 p.m. to 6:19 only. So why not until 4:50 or until 6:20? Because 4:50 onwards or 6:20 onwards is already considered late. Yes, 10 minutes before your first open slot is already considered late. Yes, you can still click the clock in button. However, you will receive a penalty, and we do not have fixed amount of penalty fee. So the late you clock in, the bigger the penalty will be deducted in your salary. Now, if in case that you forgot to click the clock in button for a specific or a certain day, automatically you will receive a penalty which will be reflected in your service fee tab, which is the fourth icon on the left, automatically by the next day. So make sure to make it a habit that once you open slot, once you plotted classes, the first thing you're going to do is to click the clock in button 30 minutes to 11 minutes before your first open slot with or without the student. Now, teachers, even if you have a broken schedule, let's say you teach in the morning, you teach in the afternoon, in between that, you have 30 minutes break, an hour break, 2 hours break, or 3 hours break. You only need to clock in once, and that is in the morning. 30 minutes to 11 minutes before your first open slot. So you don't need to click the clock in button before you enter in each of your classes. For your classroom attendance, the system will take note of that one, which means to say that if you enter the classroom late, automatically a penalty will be deducted in your salary. So make sure to make it a habit that once you open slot, once you plotted classes, you must click the clock in button 30 minutes to 11 minutes before your first open slot with or without a student. Now, teachers, we do not have clock out or punch out button. So once your classes for the day is over, then that is it. You can already rest easy. Okay? All right, so now this time, let's talk about the second icon on your left side. So if you can see it closely or clearly, the second icon on the left side has a calendar as its logo. I believe this is the most important part of your tutor client because this is where you will be constantly once you plot classes, once a student book your slots. This is where you will enter the classroom. This is where you're going to report if in cases you encounter some issues, and this is where you can find the students' book material that you're going to use inside your classes. So the second icon on the left side is your class table. Once you click it, you will be in this part right here. So teachers, for now, since you are new here, you cannot open or plot classes yet. You can only open or plot classes once you're done with your task, meaning to say, you have finished your personal data, your payment methods details, as well as your training center. So once you're done with all the tasks, inform your HR, the one who interviewed you, right away so they can check your account. Once they have deemed that you've finished everything, then that's the only time they will give you the go signal to open or to plot classes. And to open and plot classes, all you've got to do is to click the class time setting button, or as we commonly call it here in Acadsoc, as the CTS button. So you might hear it from your HR or TM saying your CTS is open, you can open and plot classes. Now, teachers, some of your HR must have already opened your class time setting. An indication is when the text is highlighted in blue, the surrounding box is in white color. As you can see in your screen right now, it's grayed out, it is locked. So that doesn't mean just because your class time setting is already open, you can open or plot classes. No, do not open, do not plot classes without your HR or TM's go signal, as your open slot, which was not informed, will be useless. Your account is not fully activated, so no student can still book that schedule yet. Okay? So once more, the purpose of your class time setting button is to open slots or to open schedule classes. But before we try opening or plotting classes, there are just things that I want you to take note or to consider. First off, teachers here in Acadsoc, we uses the 24-hour clock or the military time. So be very careful in opening and plotting classes. We have a lot of instances or cases when teachers has plotted a 2 a.m. class instead of a 2 p.m. one. So 2 p.m. is 1400. So be very careful. Another thing as well, we do not follow our own time zone. We follow Akatsoc's time zone, which is UTC plus 8 Beijing time. But if you're in the Philippines, no need to worry because the Philippines and Beijing has the same time zone. However, if you're not in the Philippines right now, or let's say you're planning to travel in another country and still wanted to teach in your free time or in your leisure time, make sure that your computer is set to UTC plus 8, Beijing time, Manila time. Okay? So the first time that your HR has given you the go signal to open slot, the first time that you plot classes, it has to be within the same week. Okay? So say for example today is Monday and your HR has given you the go signal to open slots. If you're going to plot classes today, that open slot, that plotted classes has to be for tomorrow until Sunday only. So why tomorrow and why not today or tonight? Because you cannot open slot within the same day. So if you wanted to have classes today or tonight, you must open it days before or a day before today. Okay? So now if you are not yet sure about your schedule this week because you might have some errands to do or you're quite busy, you're not yet sure about your schedule, just inform your HR and be sure to open slot within the first 3 to 5 days they have given you the go signal, because after 5 days your account will be locked by the system automatically and it's quite difficult to reopen an account. Okay, it might take days or weeks before it's open again. So make sure to open slot within the same week the first time that you plot classes. Why is it within the same week? It is part of your observational pace. You won't have lots of classes right away. You might have less student or a minimal students only. So you can cope up with the different classroom platforms, and if in cases you encounter issues, there will be no penalties, no complaints from students. Okay? But the second time you open slot, the third time you plot classes, the fourth time, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, and so on, you're going to open or plot classes a week in advance this time. Yes, teachers, you're going to open slot the second time onwards a week in advance. Why a week in advance? Because most of the students that we have here usually book classes a week in advance. And if you're going to open slot within the same week, tendencies you will have less students or no students at all. So make sure to make it a habit that once you open slots for the second time onwards, it has to be a week in advance. Now, since it's a week in advance, teachers, if you are not sure about your next week's schedule, since it's quite early, you might have some errands to do, then do not open slot good for 5 days right away or good for 7 days right away. You can open slot good for 2 days first or good for 3 days first, just to be sure that it's going to be okay on your end. You will not be absent, you will not be you will not cancel your book slots, okay, or your open slots. Well, teachers, and when it's almost the next week, let's say today is already Thursday or today is Friday, then that's when you add additional open or plotted classes for your next week's schedule, okay. Now, before you open slots, be sure to check the date and the time of your availability. Make sure that you can teach and render those said date or time. Make sure to check the date and the time if there are no events, gatherings, meetings, activities you need to attend. Check the weather is good within that same week or next week's schedule. No scheduled activities that you need to join, and check if there are no scheduled power interruption within those said date or time, and no internet service maintenance in your area within those set date or time before you open slots. Because once you cancel classes, once you have absences, of course, there will be consequences on that one. So when you're all set and you're ready to open slots, all you've got to do is to click the class time setting button. So let's just say, teachers, that you only want to teach here good for an hour and 30 minutes in the morning because you wanted to have more classes in the afternoon and in the evening. So if you can see it closely or clearly, teachers, your screen right now is actually divided into boxes. So if you're going to open or plot classes, you must press each of the boxes individually. Unfortunately, you cannot open slots, or you cannot drag it all together. You must press each of this unbook or on these slots individually. Not like what I'm doing. I have to do it like this in order to highlight it faster. Okay. So press the schedule you've wanted based on the time and the date you wanted to have classes or you wanted students to book to. Clear? So be very careful in what you plot, because if you press the wrong schedule, you cannot open, you cannot close that schedule anymore, and you have to be careful. Okay? So teachers, only click the schedule you've wanted to open and the schedule you wanted the students to book to. If in cases that you press the wrong schedule, for example, the one I did in your screens, just click it again to unhighlight it. Now, once you press all the schedule, replacing your class time setting button is the submit button. Once you click submit button, this part right here will start to load. Once the loading ended, teachers, you can click the class table icon on the left side to refresh. Now, once you click the class table icon on the left side, and this is what you can see in your screen, let me say you have successfully opened slots, you have successfully plotted classes. The blue slots in your screens right now are the one that your student can only book to. Once you open slot, anytime a student can book your schedule as well, even a week before your class together. An indication that a student booked your slots is when you can see a VIP tags on each of the boxes that you have decided to open. That's an indication that a student has booked it. So here in Acadsoc, we are a booking system. When we say booking system, teachers, it is the student who will book the teacher they wanted to teach them. It is not me, your PT, not your HR, not your team manager who will assign students in your class table. So While working on your personal data, make sure that you uploaded a good introduction video, good audio recording, a nice written self introduction, and your profile picture is good. Okay, so those are the criteria that your student will check before they book a teacher's class. Okay, so that's how we open, that's how we plot classes. Now let's go back to the empty slots we have had a while ago. So as you can see, teachers, your class time setting button is grayed out or locked. So there are three reasons why our class time setting button is grayed out or is locked. First off, you can only open slots, you can only plot classes from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So teachers, 10 p.m. onwards, the system will automatically lock your class time setting and will not allow you to plot classes anymore. Okay? No within the same day opening of slots too. You cannot open slot within the same day. If you wanted to have classes tonight, make sure to open it days before today or a day before today. So another reason why your class time setting is grayed out or locked is because of your punishment. Yes, you heard it right. Your TM or your team manager will automatically lock your class time setting if teachers you have canceled your classes or if you have absences. Now, once your class time setting is locked or grayed out, take note it's not going to be locked or grayed out for 1 day, for 2 days, or for 3 days only. It's going to be locked. It's going to be grayed out for the first for the first 1 week, 2 weeks, for 1 month to um 3 months that you're here, depending on the severity of your case. So, teachers, since you cannot open slots on your own, you must send your desired schedule to your team manager, just like the one I have posted in your screens right now. So, you can say, for example, hello, TM, good day. Here's my desired schedule for next week, April 7 to April 17, Monday to Sunday. So, teachers, this is 4 hours, which is the minimum required hours you need to render each day here in Acadsoc. Now, for your schedule, we will talk about it in the succeeding videos to come. So, teachers, you're going to send your desired schedule to the green icon on the lower left corner of your tutor client. This green icon is the official messaging tool here in Acadsoc. So we call this icon as the Acadsoc IM. So for your Acadsoc IM teachers, this is where you can send messages to the department heads, the different admins here in Acadsoc. You can send me a message here, your PT, your HR, the one who interview, as well as your TM. So for now, teachers, since you're new here, you are still under your HR. The one who interviewed you will be who will assist you in working your task, will guide you and will answer your questions on the parts you have difficulties working. Now, once you're done with your HR task, once you have plotted for the first time, your HR will now endorse you to your team manager. Your team manager, or TM as we call them here, will be the one responsible to guide and to help you if in cases you encounter some issues. Okay? But once you send your desired schedule to them, that does not mean that they will follow the schedule you've wanted. Some of them might only open good for 2 hours per day or good for 3 hours per day only as part of your punishment. That is why before you open slots, before you plotted classes, be sure to check the date and the time of your availability to avoid canceling classes or to avoid absences. Because once you cancel classes, once you are absent, of course, there will be consequences of that one. So, teachers, if you're going to be absent, aside from deduction of teaching points, aside from your penalty, and aside from locking your class time setting button, you will also receive a penalty and you will receive a warning letter. Three warning letter here in Acadsoc means to termination. Once you receive a warning letter, make sure that it does not reach to three in a month because by the next month it will revert back to zero once again. Okay? But teachers take note as well also. If your absences and your canceled classes is just way too high, your team manager has the ability or the capability to terminate you right away since we do not have contracts to sign here. That is why make sure to make it a habit that once you plotted classes, once you open slot, you can really teach and render those. However, if in cases that it really is an emergency, let's say you are sick, you need medical attention, some family emergency, um, intermittent internet connection, you've lost power connection, or you have sudden power outage, be sure to cancel your classes instead of being absent. Because teachers, if you're going to cancel classes, as long as your reasons are valid and you have proof that your reasons are true and just, your TM can help you revoke and remove your penalty. Make sure that you have prepared a valid proof that it is true. So once you canceled classes, next thing you're going to do is to send a message to your team manager in the Acadsoc IM once again, just like the message I posted in your screens right now. So to send them a message, we do not just send them messages randomly, but we do have formats to follow. Make sure that the date is there, include the TUID number and your tutor's name, which you can find on the upper right of your tutor client, and then there goes your message. So make sure to include your TUID and your tutor's name because that is how they will check your issue so they can find your account right away. Take note, TMs here in Acadsoc does not only have one or two or three teachers in their team, they have 300 to 600 teachers in one TM. So you can say it in your message, hello TM, greetings, I apologize, I canceled my classes because your reason. Please help me remove my penalty. Here's my screenshot as proof. Okay? Clear, teachers? All right. So now to cancel classes, all you've got to do is to autonomous cancellation button. It's the button next to your class time setting. So once you press the autonomous cancellation button, the blue slots on your screens will be highlighted in pink. So to cancel classes, all you've got to do, teachers, is to click the slots you wanted to lock or cancel. Let's say your 1700, your 1730, your 1800, your 1830, and your 1900. So once you press the schedule right here, replacing autonomous cancellation button is the submit button. Press submit button. This part right here will start to load. Once the loading ended, you can click the class table icon on the left side. Once you click it, and you can see a lock icon and the slots that you have decided to cancel or lock, just like the picture I sent in your chat box right now. That means to say you have successfully canceled or locked those unbooked or book slots. Okay, you can already rest easy. No student can book that schedule anymore. But take note, if you're going to cancel or lock book slots with student on it 5 days before or 72 hours before your class together, that's totally fine. You will not receive penalty or deduction of teaching points. But if you're going to cancel book slots with student on it 3 days before, 2 days before, a day before, a few hours before your class together. The closer you cancel a book slots from the class itself, the bigger the penalty will be deducted in your salary. So in your chat box right now, I've sent an information so you do have an idea how much will be your deduction fee once you cancel a book slots. But the good thing is, if you're going to cancel or lock on book slots with no student, that's totally fine. You will not receive penalty or deduction of teaching points. That's why teachers, before you plot an open slot, make sure to check the time and the date for your availability, and make sure that you can teach it to avoid canceling classes and absences. Okay?